This is chapter 9 of my book, Mr. Please Don't Take My Car. A pistol can be very persuasive. My two worst incidents in repoing were both a result of the lenders making a mistake. There was the Explorer in Rangeville that I just told you about in chapter 8. But later on, there was the Camaro in Cordova, Alabama. I went to the given address in Cordova. It was late in the evening, maybe 9 o'clock. The address was in a government housing project on the edge of town. I found my vehicle pulled up in a parking place in front of a duplex. I checked the VIN, and it was my vehicle. It's the one I'd come to pick up. So I backed up to it and was about to put the chains on the rear axles when the debtor comes running out of the duplex. He's upset that I'm trying to take his car. He's not late on his payments. Now let me pause and say this. Nobody's ever late on their payments. To hear them talk, and every one of them, there's got to be a mistake somewhere. It's usually not their fault. You just, you got to take what they say with a grain of salt. You can still be nice. You can still, I'm sorry, and it worked. Look, just being nice. Hey, man, I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry. I got to pick it up. I got the paperwork to pick it up. You're bluffing. But it does amaze me how so many debtors threaten to turn me over to their lawyer. I mean, these are people that can't afford a car payment, but they got a lawyer on retainer. Right. So this guy comes out in Cordova. He comes out of the duplex there, and he confronts me about trying to take his car. Now, as soon as he came out, I'm like, man, I'm sorry, but I got to take it. I started in on the being a nice guy routine. Well, he ain't falling for the story. He runs back into the house and comes out with a 9mm pistol and proceeds to wave it around. Waving that pistol seemed to have the effect of working him up into a frenzy. I know it had gotten my attention. He had my undivided attention at that time. Now, I'm casually leaning on the back of my truck, and I'm leaning on the back of the truck. I'm trying to portray an air of calm. I'm trying to calm the situation. I've got the clipboard in my hand. I'm not threatening. I'm not arguing. I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, let's let this pass. But the debtor isn't picking up my vibes. He's not picking up those calm, positive waves that I'm sending to him. He's still waving that pistol, and the more he waves the pistol, the wilder he gets. He's not late on his payments, and I am not taking that car. And it's as if to emphasize the point, he takes that pistol and he shoots right next to my foot, and he says, that's your blankety blank if you take that car. Now, he's standing so close to me that when he fires, the shell goes into the back of my truck. And this is the shell that I have been carrying around for years. And but it goes into the, it ejects and goes into the back of my truck. And, being firm and bluffing is good until the firearms come out. This repo is now officially over. Well, Mr. Repo Man digs down into the reserve of his charm and wit and proceeds to diffuse the situation. I should get an Oscar for this one. I can completely understand your outrage and anger at the big bad bank making such a terrible mistake with such a fine, upstanding citizen as you are. He seems to be calming down, and so far, so good. It's just been me and the debtor. But not for long. About this time, somebody called the debtor's parents, and they come flying up in a big red pickup truck, and they pull up right to the front of my repo truck to block me in. I couldn't leave now if I wanted to. Well, just about the time they get stopped, here comes the Cordova Police Department, blue lights flashing, sirens wailing, come flying into the parking lot. Now, Cordova's not a big town. And there must have been only one policeman on duty that evening, and he's responding to a shots fired call in town. The officer jumps out of his cruiser with his pistol, on it. When he got his hand on his pistol, he gets out. He stops. He assesses the situation, and he just kind of walks over. He sees that nothing bad's going on. I'm still casually leaning against the back of my truck, and I am the epitome of cool and collected. I'm gonna tell you. I'm talking to the debtor. I'm telling him to contact the bank and try to get this thing worked out. The policeman walks over and asks a few questions. The debtor had calmed down by now. His mother had gone into the house. He'd given his dad the gun. And so, he's like standing there. Everything's cool. The policeman sees that it's cool. And so he gives me a little smirk and then he leaves. Well, the debtor's parents vouch for him, and they're sure that his payments are not late. Again, I've heard it all before. I've been doing it long enough. Most debtors will swear that their payments are not late. The bank must have made a mistake. Well, bank mistake or not, a debtor with a pistol is getting my vote tonight. I talked to the young man for a while, and I assured him that I was not coming back for that car anytime soon. And that was true. I was not bluffing at that time. That is true. I'm not coming back. He didn't have to worry about me slipping back in the dead of night and taking that vehicle. He'd need to talk to the lien holder, or I would have to come back. So I left the debtor with a handshake, and I drove around the corner and headed out of the complex, and there, parked by the side of the road, was the policeman. The policeman's name was Chris. I can't remember his last name. He's a Cordova policeman. He's the one that answered the call. He was waiting for me, and he was laughing his head off. When I saw that he was waiting for me, I started laughing too. You see, I knew him. I knew him from years before. We recognized each other as soon as he stepped out of the patrol car. I had not indicated that I knew him because I didn't want to, I didn't want anything to lean my way or either way with the debtor and his family. But, we wanted to be sure that everything stayed on a professional level while we were dealing with the situation. But several years before this incident in Cordova, Chris was a repo man in Huntsville. And I worked out of Huntsville. I knew him from there. I knew him from Huntsville. In fact, he had written a book about asset recovery and repoing, and I've got it. I had a copy of it somewhere. I don't know if I've still got it. But that's why he knew when he pulled up, he saw me, he knew exactly what was going on, and he knew that I was an experienced repo man and, pretty much had things under control. And he was confident that, everything's going to be okay. But he did give me a hard time when I saw him around the corner. Yeah, he never got caught. Oh, no, right, yeah. He never got caught. He always, never had any problems. But anyway, we caught up on old times, and I left for my next address. Well, the next day, I wrote up my report, and I sent it into the office. And Alabama auto adjusters always took great care of their employees, and they would never ask us to go back to a situation that had already proven to be dangerous or more dangerous than normal. They would prefer we, not go back into a life-threatening situation, and I wholeheartedly agreed with that policy. But needless to say, that account was immediately placed on hold and went in the hold file. Well, a day or two later, we heard from the finance company, and yes, indeed, there had been a mistake. The debtor was not late on his payments. He was totally justified in objecting to the repossession. And so, yeah, mistakes do happen, but thankfully not too often. That night when the debtor shot, next to me, that's when I dug the shell out of the back of the car or the back of the truck there and had it drilling. And I guess, I've been carrying it for luck on and off throughout the years, and I did carry it with me while I was repoing, and I never got shot at again, so I guess it worked. I don't know. But that was an interesting one.